In the news tonight, the Israeli cabinet votes to amend the security law widening police stop and frisk powers as fresh clashes erupt in the West Bank, and the Pope calls on both sides to shun hate and vengeance. A U.S. strike in Syria kills the 5th senior Khorasan group leader, and the Syrian army makes advances in an offensive to retake territory from terrorists around the northern city of Aleppo. And Egyptians turn out in low numbers to vote in the first phase of an election hailed by President Sisi as a milestone on the road to democracy. Good evening and welcome to a new edition of the news. His Majesty the King has rejected the 2015 decentralization draft law after it was endorsed by the Parliament. Using the powers vested in him under the Article 93 of the Constitution, His Majesty ordered the bill to be returned to Parliament after it was found unconstitutional. Chapter A of Article 6 of the draft legislation was found incompatible with the interpretation of the Constitutional Court, which deemed in contradiction with the provision of Article 121 of the Constitution. His Majesty the King, the Supreme Commander of the Jordan Armed Forces Arab Army, visited the Royal Jordanian Air Force Command. Upon arrival, His Majesty was welcomed by Special Advisor for Military Affairs and Chairman of the Joint Chief of Staff, General Mishal Mohammed al-Ziban, His Royal Highness Prince Faisal bin al-Hussein, and the Commander of the Royal Air Force. His Majesty listened to a briefing on technical and operational matters, as well as ongoing training at the Royal Air Force various units. A bill expanding the rules by which Israeli police can stop and search anyone was approved by Israeli ministers. The Israeli cabinet voted unanimously in favor of amending the current law, widening police stop and frisk powers, even without reasonable suspicion that the object of their search is carrying a weapon. The law will now need to pass 3 readings in the parliament before coming into effect. In another security measure, at least 4 Israeli cities have temporarily banned Arab laborers from working in their schools. A party representing Israel's Arab minority called the municipalities edicts racist. At least 41 Palestinians and 7 Israelis have died in recent street violence triggered by Palestinian anger over increased Jewish encroachment on Jerusalem's Al-Aqsa Mosque. Today, fresh clashes again erupted in the West Bank city of Hebron between Palestinians and Israeli soldiers. At least 2 Palestinians were injured by live ammunition, while dozens were treated for suffocation due to tear gas bombs. Pope Francis appealed for an end to violence in the Holy Land, urging Israelis and Palestinians to shun hate and vengeance and take concrete steps to ease tensions. The Pope told the tens of thousands gathered for Mass in St. Peter's Square there's a need in this moment for great courage and great fortitude in order to say no to hatred and vengeance and to carry out acts of peace. The Pontiff called on government leaders and citizens to oppose violence and take concrete steps to decrease tensions. About 65,000 people attended the Mass in St. Peter's Square, where Pope Francis had proclaimed 4 new Catholic saints.
Fratelli e sorelle, seguo con grande preoccupazione.
For this, we pray that God might strengthen both political leaders and people, that they might have the courage to oppose violence and to take concrete steps aimed at decreasing tensions. In the present Middle East context, peace in the Holy Land is more crucial than ever. For this, we ask God for the good of all humanity.
Over to Syria, where Syrian troops backed by allied militia made advances in their offensive to retake territory around the northern city of Aleppo from terrorists and insurgents and jihadist fighters. Syrian state television reported the advance and said the campaign around Aleppo is one of several assaults the army has waged against rebel fighters since the Russian military operations began end of last month. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights said the army and its allies retook 3 villages after fierce fighting in which at least 17 Daesh members were killed. The observatory also reported fighting around the town of Talbise, part of a rebel-held enclave north of Homs city, under heavy bombardment by Russian jets for the last 2 weeks and a ground offensive by the army. An airstrike by the US-led coalition has killed Sanafi al-Nasr, a Saudi citizen and the leader of an al-Qaeda offshoot called the Khorasan Group, according to a statement by the Pentagon. Pentagon spokesman said al-Nasr organized routes for new recruits to travel from Pakistan to Syria through Turkey and played a significant role in the group's finances. He was killed in airstrikes on Thursday in northwest Syria, the statement said. Al-Nasr was the 5th senior Khorasan Group leader killed in the last 4 months, according to the Pentagon. Over the past 24 hours, the coalition conducted 18 airstrikes against Daesh in Iraq and 5 in Syria, said a statement by Combined Joint Task Force. In Iraq, these strikes hit near 9 cities, including Sinjar, Ramadi, Mosul and Kisk, while the strikes in Syria hit near Abu Kamal, Aleppo, as well as Daesh stronghold Raqqa. And Russian planes carried out 39 sorties and hit 51 Daesh targets over the past 24 hours, said the Russian Defense Ministry. The aircraft hit targets in Hama, Latakia, Damascus and Aleppo regions. The ministry said the released video showed Russian jets hitting the terrorist group's fortified area in Hama province and their stronghold in Latakia province. And in Iraq, assisted by Shiite militia, Iraqi forces continued for the 5th day their push into the northern parts of the Sunni Salahuddin province to gain control of the strategic Al-Fatah area northeast of the oil refinery in Biji. Iraqi forces said the operation to gain control the town of Al-Fatah took longer than expected as the advance was slowed by bombs planted along the road by the Daesh militants. The area was pounded by heavy artillery and mortar from early morning in preparation for a push into later on the day. The Iraqi army and volunteer militia fighters launched an assault on Wednesday to retake the city of Biji in northern Iraq from Daesh. Egyptians have turned out in low numbers to vote in the first phase of parliamentary elections for the first since 2013. Egypt has had no parliament since June 2012, when a court dissolved the chamber, then denominated by the Muslim Brotherhood, reversing a key accomplishment of the 2011 uprising. A total of over 27 million people across 14 of Egypt's 27 provinces are eligible to vote today and tomorrow in the first phase. However, turnout has been low so far. Here's more on the first phase of the election.
Egypt's first parliamentary election since 2013 began today, with the outcome expected to most likely be a compliant legislature. Voting is staggered by region. It began in 14 of Egypt's 27 provinces, including the large cities of Alexandria and Giza, with some 5,400 candidates vying for seats. Results from this first round, which continues tomorrow, are expected later this month. The capital, Cairo, will go to the polls in November. Egyptians overseas voted yesterday and will vote again in November. Runoffs will take place on October 26 and 27 and November 30th and December 1st in areas where no clear winner has emerged, and the final results will be announced in December. Today, and as the first phase of parliamentary elections kicked off, security forces were on guard both inside and outside the polling stations, outnumbering the voters. The turnout, however, is a big concern. It's what drove President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi to address the nation, encouraging citizens to vote. The president specifically directed his words to women and youth. But many from the younger generations are not intending to vote. They represent nearly half the voting population.
Of course, I will not vote. None of these candidates will benefit me. All previous MPs gave many promises never honored, so I will not bother myself. I will not go, because even if I did, it's useless.
With Egypt's largest opposition movement excluded and the secular opposition weakened by internal divisions and funding problems, analysts and politicians expect turnout to be low. Nonetheless, the elections are very important for the country. Its completion declares to the world that Egypt's road to democracy is over. A crucial step the president needs is to attract foreign investors and facilitate loans from the World Bank.
The elections are necessary for the citizen to have the representative who will serve his needs and form legislations. For the state, it is the third political milestone in the 2013 roadmap, so Egypt is in desperate need for the parliament to complete the country's structure.
The unicameral parliament, after the constitution abolished the upper chamber and expanded the number of seats in the main house, will comprise 568 elected members, 448 elected on an individual basis, and 120 through winner-takes-all lists in 4 districts with quotas for women, Christians, and youth. The president may also appoint a further 5%. Among the legislature's first task will be to reject or ratify some 200 laws and decrees issued by Sisi within 15 days, though many of the candidates have said they are generally supportive of Sisi's political program. Alia Tuqan for the news at 10.
In a fresh bid to end months of fighting in Yemen, the Yemeni government announced today it will attend UN-sponsored talks with the Houthis and their allies. Government spokesperson Rajih Badi said the decision has been taken to attend the talks in response to a call by the United Nations. UN Special Envoy to Yemen, Ismail Houd Sheikh Ahmed, is in Saudi Arabia for discussions with Yemeni President Abd Rabbu Mansour Hadi and other senior Yemeni officials over the talks. A previous round of UN-sponsored talks between the Yemeni government and the Houthis in Geneva last June failed to achieve a breakthrough. German Chancellor Angela Merkel, on a visit to Turkey, held talks with Turkish leaders in Istanbul to promote a European Union plan that would offer aid and concessions to Turkey in exchange for a measure to stem the mass movement of migrants across Europe's borders. Speaking at a joint news conference with Turkish Prime Minister Ahmet Davutoglu, Merkel said Germany could help accelerate the path to visa-free travel to EU for Turks and push forward Ankara's protected EU membership talks. In return, she explained Turkey to agree to take back migrants rejected by the EU, something Davutoglu has said he will only agree if there is progress on the visa issue.
Bu bizim Suriye krizi ortada yokken mutabık kaldığımız bir husustu. 2017 için planladığımız bu konuyu 2016 içinde
vom Premierminister genannten 4 Elemente.
As the Prime Minister said, there are 4 elements and Germany is ready to give support on these matters, including visa facilities. A working group between Turkey and Germany carries out talks on these matters, and this group will convene again in the coming days.
Meanwhile, hundreds of migrants turned up at Slovenia's border with Austria after a passage through the country was opened to limit the influx in neighboring countries. Some 3,000 migrants entered Slovenia from Croatia yesterday after Hungary sealed its southern border with Croatia at midnight on Friday. Croatia and Slovenia have both said they will not stop migrants from crossing, providing Austria and Germany also kept their door open. But while Slovenia says it wants to limit arrival to around 2,500 per day, more than 5,000 daily are crossing from Greece into Macedonia and then Serbia. The EU has agreed a plan to share out 120,000 refugees among its members, which is only a small proportion of the 700,000 migrants expected to reach Europe's shore from North Africa and Turkey this year. U.S. President Barack Obama has welcomed a so-called adoption day for the Iran nuclear agreement as the United States approved conditional sanctions waiver to take effect when Tehran curbs its nuclear program. Adoption Day came 90 days after the UN Security Council endorsed the agreement reached by Iran and 6 world powers, under which most sanctions on Iran would be lifted in exchange for limits on Tehran's nuclear activities. Obama said today marks an important milestone towards preventing Iran from obtaining a nuclear weapon and ensuring its nuclear program is exclusively peaceful. Earlier in the day, the European Union published legal acts that opened the way for the bloc to lift sanctions if Tehran meets the conditions of the nuclear agreement. Forget Rolex, Cartier, Chopard and other international brands and buy a Matoa watches. Indonesia watchmakers are turning waste wood into timepieces as a means to encourage recycling and to help develop the creative art scene in the Southeast Asian nation. Using discarded wood collected from furniture makers, the designers at Matoa transformed the blocks into beautifully crafted watches. The name Matoa was inspired by the name of tall, tough and huge tree species that grow in eastern Indonesia. Matoa currently has 5 designs named after 5 Indonesian islands and exports watches to at least 9 countries. If you haven't had dinner yet, this could be an appetizer. In California, seafood enthusiasts competed to eat as many crab claws as fast as possible. 30 contestants took part in the Florida contest. Each cracked and ate their way through 25 stone crab claws and vying to post the fastest time. According to reports, about 40% of the average of 2.6 million pounds of stone crab claws that are harvested annually come from the waters of Florida Keys. The winner, Aaron Sutcliffe, finished in 14 minutes and 20 seconds. He says he mastered the art of eating stone crab claws quickly when he was a child.
No pressure whatsoever. You can do this. This is that moment that you've been training for all of your life. That moment is now. It is here. Oh, look at Larry down here, man. He's like the heck with the halfway point. He's blowing that out of the water. He's setting a pace, dude.
The draw for the Euro 2016 playoffs was held at UEFA headquarters in Nyon, Switzerland. Hungary will have to overcome Norway if they are to qualify for the first major tournament in 30 years, while Sweden and Denmark will clash in a Scandinavian derby. In the other ties, Ukraine will meet Slovenia and Bosnia will face Ireland. The first legs will be played between November 2014, with the second legs between November 15-17.
Déjà merci. Merci. Dominique. The draw is now completed.
Around 2,500 swimmers raced across Hong Kong's iconic Victoria Harbour. These swimmers came from all walks of life and ranged from 12 years old to over 60. In the international male race, Alan do Carmo of Brazil won the 1.8-kilometer swim. The female category also went to Brazilian Ana Marcela Cunaha. The cross-harbor race was first held in 1906. It resumed 5 years ago after being suspended for 33 years because of concerns about water pollution. And finally, moderate conditions continue in the hilly areas for the rest of tonight, while it will remain relatively hot in other regions with southwesterly moderate to brisk winds. Tomorrow, a tangible drop in temperature is expected, but moderate summer conditions continue to prevail in most regions. Skies will be partly cloudy with a chance for rain, especially in the southern and eastern regions. The Gulf of Aqaba should expect relatively hot conditions tomorrow with possible rain, while winds will be northerly moderate to brisk and seas slightly high. Next are the lows and highs for tonight and tomorrow. And in the news, here's a recap of our top stories. The Israeli cabinet vote to amend the security law, widening police stop and frisk powers as fresh clashes erupt in the West Bank, and the Pope calls on both sides to shun hate and vengeance. A U.S. strike in Syria kills the 5th senior Khorasan group leader, and the Syrian army makes advances in an offensive to retake territory from terrorists around the northern city of Aleppo. And Egyptians turn out in low numbers to vote in the first phase of an election hailed by President al-Sisi as a milestone on the road to democracy. And with this we come to an end. I'm Faraj Looney. Thank you for watching and have a good night.